Your assigned readings this week cover a variety of accommodations and modifications for students with developmental disabilities, as well as low incidence disabilities. During this presentation, I will address the historical timeline of inclusion for students with developmental disabilities, the benefits of inclusive practices, and several assistive technology devices to help support the student with moderate severe disabilities access the core curriculum. Before the 1960s, individuals who were born with developmental disabilities and low incidence disabilities were typically institutionalized per recommendation of doctors almost immediately after birth. During the Civil Rights Movement, parents and teachers began to question the idea of institutionalizing these individuals and whether their civil liberties were violated in the process. The influential 1971 case of Pennsylvania Association for Retarded Children versus Commonwealth of Pennsylvania contested a state law that specifically allowed public schools to deny service to children who have not attained a mental age of 5 years at the time they would ordinarily enroll in first grade. Under a consent decree, the state agreed to provide full access to a free public education to children with mental retardation up to age 21. This case also established the standard of appropriateness, that is, that each child be offered an education appropriate to his or her learning capacities, and established a clear preference for the least restrictive placement for each child. In the following year, in Mills v. Board of Education, 7 children between the ages of 8 and 16 with a variety of mental and behavioral disabilities brought suit against the District of Columbia Public Schools, which had refused to enroll some students and expelled others solely on the basis of their disability. The school district admitted that an estimated 12,340 children with disabilities within the district's boundaries would not be served during the 1971-72 school year because of budget constraints. The U.S. District Court ruled that school districts were constitutionally prohibited from deciding that they had inadequate resources to serve children with disabilities because the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment would not allow the burden of insufficient funding to fall more heavily on children with disabilities than on other children. As discussed at length in other presentations and within your readings, Public Law 94-142 introduced the idea of least restrictive environment. In 1990, the law was reauthorized and renamed, focusing on Person-First Language, to Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA. In 1990, efforts were made to physically increase the time that students with and without severe disabilities spent together during non-academic times, such as recess, lunch, music, nutrition breaks, and assemblies. The integration of students with moderate and severe disabilities gained some prominence during this time with the focus on the social benefits to the students with disabilities. Students remained in developmental classrooms for primary instruction. Critics of this model pointed out that the classrooms were juvenile-looking because they addressed the students at their developmental level instead of chronological age. There was a movement toward a blend of academic and functional curriculum in order to address meaningful skills that improve quality of life. Age-appropriate skills in the areas of self-care, safety, community access, social recreation, and communication replaced age-inappropriate skills of stringing beads, repeating simple sounds such as ba-ba, coloring, and doing two-piece puzzles that were typically of the developmental approach. Students learned such life skills as doing laundry, managing public transit, task-oriented skills in order to maintain a job, money skills, ordering skills, and other independent living skills. With each reauthorization of IDEA, greater emphasis is placed on the rights of students with disabilities to learn and to be educated with students without disabilities, and by highly qualified teachers. In addition, the No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 has heightened awareness of the need to challenge all students and to stress the importance of all students learning core curriculum content. Teachers are being held increasingly accountable for the learning of their students. Both of these educational acts, IDEA and NCLB, support the inclusion of students with disabilities in general education classrooms with access to core curriculum. You may wonder, what are the benefits of inclusion for students with severe cognitive impairments? First, it is important to note that it is the child's right to be educated with his or her same-aged peers. The decision on placement is an IEP team decision, and no single party decides. Placement decisions are determined on the student's individual needs and his or her rights as protected under IDEA. Age-appropriate models surround a student with developmental disabilities who is included in the general education classroom. When placed in a special education classroom, students are exposed to other students with communication, behavioral, and social deficits. Within the general education classroom, the student is exposed to peers who know how to communicate, who understand the social norms on the playground, and who demonstrate appropriate social behaviors and student learning behaviors. When included in the general education classroom, the student with disabilities has direct access to core curriculum. Although curriculum may be modified and accommodations in place, students will have access to the core curriculum as mandated in the NCLB Act. Students do not need to be demonstrating grade level performance, but can gain valuable academic and non-academic skills from participation in grade level lessons. While the student may not be expected to learn the exact same content, nor in the same manner as classmates, he or she should be challenged to learn as much as possible. Students who are truly included become a member of the class and not merely a visitor. As a general education teacher, reflect on whether all of your students feel like productive members of the classroom environment. This idea of membership versus visitorship applies to many different subgroups, not just those identified with developmental disabilities. There are many benefits for the child with disabilities, but what about the children without a disability? Won't their education be minimized? Will they lose opportunities of direct instruction due to the teacher attending to the student with special needs? Actually, the general education students greatly benefit from the inclusive model as well. Students develop an awareness and appreciation of differences. They develop skills related to teaching others and how to use assistive technology. They will also understand that there are different modalities of learning such as auditory, visual, and kinesthetic. Research has shown that students who were falling behind academically showed improvement as a result of helping students with disabilities due to increased feedback from the teacher or paraprofessional and investigative skills development. I am challenged by this concept. My children attend a wonderful elementary school academic-wise, but there are very few included students on campus. My children have yet to be exposed to learning next to a child with physical disabilities, behavioral disorders, or other low-incidence disabilities. I want to emphasize what inclusion is not. It is not merely a placement. If you place a child with developmental disabilities in the general education classroom without appropriate supports, they become a fixture amongst the students instead of a valued member. Inclusion is not a child with disabilities placed in the general education classroom with a paraprofessional velcroed to their every move. When the adult is attached to the student at all times, the student with moderate to severe disabilities will be isolated and develop an overdependence on an adult's assistance for all tasks. The student may develop learned helplessness and become prompt dependent, not realizing his or her personal competence. Inclusion is not periodic visits into the general education classroom. We may view this model as mainstreaming. When teams utilize this model, they allow the student to enter the general education classroom only when they think the student will manage the coursework at grade level, such as during art, music, or library time, which requires minimal accommodations. It's important to remember that all children can and do learn. Your text highlights several appropriate accommodations and modifications that meet the needs of students with developmental disabilities. I want to elaborate on assistive technology and what that might look like in your classroom. First, as in all areas of special education, there is a procedure and process to attaining assistive technology. By law, all IEP teams are required to discuss whether the child requires assistive technology in order to access the curriculum or demonstrate progress. Assessments are completed and the team determines what tool would best meet the student's needs. Many districts have an identified district employee who manages all assistive technology referrals and assessments. When assessing a child for assistive technology, we utilize the SET framework and consider the student, the environment, the task, and the tools. Teams address the student's individual needs and learning styles. They will review the environment, such as the instructional and physical environments, environmental support for student and staff, environmental access issues, and the attitudes and expectations of individuals in the learning environment. Next, the assessment team will evaluate the tasks that enable the student to master the IEP goals and objectives and that are required in order to function in certain environments. Finally, the team will look at various tools that will assist the student in the processes detailed above. Training is a primary component in all assistive technology cases. The student, parents, and all professionals who work with the student must be adequately trained on how to use the device. When teams skip this part of the plan, the device will minimally support the student's access to his or her learning environment. I'm going to spend some time now reviewing some popular assistive technology devices you may encounter while working in an inclusive setting. IntelliKeys is an alternative keyboard designed to meet the needs of students with physical disabilities. It is a customizable, flat, touch-sensitive device. Unlike standard keyboards with a fixed set of keys, the configuration of IntelliKeys can be easily changed by sliding different overlays onto the touch-sensitive area. The website offers free trials, webinar training, and software updates for their products. As our classrooms increase digital use, this tool is an effective way for students to access information and curriculum. You can find this website on the last slide of our presentation. We all rely heavily on our calendars and to-do lists. This app, the Pocket Picture Planner, allows individuals to utilize a visual schedule on a handheld device. This tool helps with organization, time management, and independent living skills. Features include multimodal visual schedules. All icons have graphic image, text label, and text-to-speech. Activities organized into simple categories such as what are you doing, with who, and where. How will you get there? How much money do you need? What to bring? What clothes to wear? You can scroll through step-by-step elements for each activity. You can get push notification activity reminders, mark activities as completed, and sync back to a desktop picture planner. And you can work with your own customized images on your Mac or Windows desktop and then just sync these images to your iOS device. Another common assistive technology tool are switches. Switches are the core of access technology. What can appear to some as simply a button can open worlds of access to communication devices, environmental controls, computer software, and mobile devices. AbleNet Incorporation details situations on their website to best serve the consumer when purchasing a switch. These are the situations. Number 1. Due to an accident, I am paralyzed from the neck down. My computer keeps my world open to me, and accessing it is very important. So the applied methodology, how the individual would access the switch. They can engage in mouth and eye movement, computer access, body mounting. Wireless is important but not absolutely essential. And one solution that AbleNet suggests is the pneumatic switch activated with either a sip or a puff of the lips, and that's the first switch that you see on the left-hand side. Situation 2. In my home, I need to use my head to activate a switch to turn my lamps on and off. As I move around in my wheelchair, I don't want the cords to get tangled or be limited by their length. And the applied methodology, they can use head movement, home lighting and power control, wheelchair mounting, and wireless is essential in order to keep cords to a minimum. One solution that AbleNet suggests is the Jelly Beamer switch, which is the switch in the middle with the red button. The picture with the red plate, which can interface with a variety of control units in the house that operate a wide variety of appliances and electronics. That's the third situation. In our classroom, we need to quickly change the switch setup, color, symbols, or positioning, depending on the activity and the student. So the applied methodology is using hands primarily, communication and entertainment devices, and basic tabletop mounting to keep the switch from moving and the cords are okay. So AbleNet solutions include the Big Mac switches with alternate color displays and the alternate spinner. The spinner is activated by a switch and enables random selections for playing games or chants such as bingo. It is an alternative to rolling the dice. Finally, as I'm sure you are aware, Apple has opened a world of affordable assistive technology apps that specifically address students with special needs. You can go directly to your iTunes account and access the special education page. Many districts are adopting iPads and iTouches in the classroom as accessible learning tools for all students. Apps in the special education page are separated into the following categories: sign language, communication, emotional development, seeing and hearing, language development, literacy and learning, diagnostic and reference, organization, life skills, and sensory and visual perception. Many of the apps include voice output devices. Finally, I want to highlight a specific page in your textbook. Look at page 274 and the box 10.6. Your text offers fantastic tips on how to bring functional tools and activities into your classroom. Please review this text box on page 274 regarding literacy, writing, and math skill development in a functional manner.